They came on an ordinary Tuesday morning in April. The sky was clear and blue over Washington, D.C. when the first reports started flooding in. Strange objects appearing in orbit. Hundreds of them. Big, dark, and definitely not human-made. Commander, Alan Morris was drinking his second cup of coffee when the emergency sirens blared through North American Defense Coalition headquarters. He jumped up from his desk, spilling hot coffee on his crisp blue uniform. The stain didn't matter now. Nothing ordinary mattered anymore. "Commander Morris to the control room immediately," the announcement system called out. The voice sounded scared, and that scared Alan even more. He ran down the hallway, passing other officers who looked just as confused and worried. When he pushed through the double doors into the main control room, the giant screens on the wall told the story. Satellite images showed massive ships surrounding Earth. They were shaped like arrowheads, metallic and threatening, positioned in a perfect grid pattern. "What are we looking at?" Alan asked, his voice steady despite the fear building in his chest. General Patricia Wright turned to him, her face pale. "First contact, Commander, and they don't look friendly." The room buzzed with frantic activity. Technicians worked at their stations trying to make sense of the data pouring in. Military bases worldwide were reporting the same thing. The alien ships had appeared simultaneously across the globe. "Have they made contact?" Alan asked. As if answering his question, every screen in the room flickered. The satellite feed disappeared, replaced by a strange face. It wasn't human. The skin was bluish-gray with no hair. The eyes were large, completely black and set wide apart. When it spoke, its mouth barely moved. But everyone heard the words, clearly in English. "People of Earth. We are the Vraxian Dominion. Your planet has resources we require. You will surrender these resources to us. You have 24 hours to prepare your leaders for negotiation. Resistance is inadvisable." The message repeated in different languages before the screens returned to normal. The control room was silent for several seconds. "Get me the president," General Wright said finally, breaking the silence. The next few hours were chaos. Fighter jets were scrambled worldwide, only to be destroyed when they got too close to the alien ships. Missiles were fired but exploded harmlessly against invisible shields. Ground-based weapons proved equally useless. Alan worked non-stop, analyzing data from the failed attacks, looking for any weakness. By evening, world leaders were already discussing surrender terms. No one wanted to admit defeat, but the aliens' technology was too advanced. Fighting seemed hopeless. "Sir, you should see this," said Nancy Phillips, one of the data analysts. She pulled up a series of readings on her computer. "I've been monitoring the energy signatures from the alien vessels. There's something odd happening every 6 hours." Alan leaned over her shoulder, studying the numbers. "Show me the pattern." Nancy pulled up a graph. "See here? At exactly 200, 0800, 1400, and 2000 hours, there's a slight fluctuation in their shield energy. It lasts for about 10 seconds. Alan's heart beat faster. "Can you isolate one ship and show me the readings?" Nancy shook her head. "That's just it. It's happening to all of them at the exact same time." Alan straightened up, his mind racing. "They're communicating, some kind of synchronized data exchange that requires them to adjust their shields." "Even if that's true, what good does it do us?" Nancy asked. "The fluctuation is tiny, less than 0.5%. Alan stared at the screen, thinking hard. "Sometimes, 0.5% is all you need. Let me take this to General Wright." Finding the general wasn't easy. She was in a video conference with military leaders from around the world. Alan waited outside the meeting room, pacing back and forth until she emerged, looking exhausted. "General, I need 5 minutes," he said. She checked her watch. "Walk with me, Morris. I have to brief the president in 20 minutes. As they walked, Alan explained what Nancy had discovered. "It's not much, but it's consistent. Every 6 hours, their shields weaken slightly during fleet-wide communication." General Wright frowned. "And you think we can exploit this?" "Maybe. We need to try something different. Our conventional weapons aren't working because they're not powerful enough to get through even the weakened shields. But what about an electromagnetic pulse? Something designed specifically to disrupt their technology during that vulnerable moment? The general stopped walking. You're talking about building a specialized EMP weapon in less than 24 hours. We already have the technology. The research facility in Nevada has been developing electromagnetic weapons for years. We just need to modify one for this specific purpose. General Wright considered this. Even if we could build it in time, how would we deliver it? Our aircraft can't get close enough. We'd need a stealth approach, something they wouldn't expect. Alan hesitated before adding, a single pilot in a modified craft approaching under the radar while they're focused on our official response. That would be a suicide mission, Commander. Alan met her eyes. Maybe. But what choice do we have? General Wright was quiet for a long moment. I'll present it to the President as an option, but I need more than just a theory. Get me some solid data and a real plan within the next 2 hours. Alan nodded and hurried back to the control room. He gathered a small team including Nancy, Dr. Susan Taylor from Weapons Research, and Frank Martinez, their best computer specialist. They worked frantically, analyzing every piece of data they had on the alien ships. Susan called her colleagues in Nevada, discussing the possibility of modifying their experimental EMP device. Frank worked on predicting the exact timing of the next communication cycle. By the time General Wright returned, they had the beginnings of a plan. It was dangerous and relied on too many unknowns, but it was something. The President has authorized your plan as a last resort, General Wright told them. If the diplomatic approach fails, we go with this. You have until 600 tomorrow to make it work. Alan looked at his team, determination in his eyes. Then we better get to work. We'll need a volunteer pilot. Who would be crazy enough to fly that mission? Frank asked. Alan took a deep breath. I will. As night fell over a frightened Earth, Alan and his team continued their desperate work. Outside, people looked up at the night sky where new stars now hung menacingly. No one knew if the sun would rise on a free world tomorrow, but in that control room a small group of humans refused to give up hope. They had found a tiny crack in the alien armor. Now they just needed to hammer it open. Morning came too quickly. Alan had not slept. His team worked through the night, fueled by coffee and fear. They gathered in a small conference room away from the main control center. The walls were covered with printouts, data charts, and satellite images of the alien ships. Give me some good news, General Wright said as she entered the room. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Dr. Susan Taylor stood up. She was a small woman with short gray hair and intense eyes. We think we can modify our EMP prototype to target their systems. We call it the thunderclap device. She pointed to a diagram on the wall. Based on the energy readings we've collected, their technology operates on different frequencies than ours. The thunderclap can be tuned to disrupt those specific frequencies. Frank Martinez jumped in. I've analyzed their communication patterns. The next major data exchange will happen at 2000 hours tonight. That's our window. General Wright nodded. What about delivery? That's the hard part, Alan said. He pulled up an image of a small aircraft on the screen. This is the Nighthawk. It's an experimental stealth craft that uses both radar-absorbing materials and active camouflage technology. Will it work against their detection systems? The general asked. We don't know, Alan admitted. But Susan has developed a new coating. That might help. Susan explained, we've studied the wavelengths their ships use to scan. This coating should bend those wavelengths around the craft. Not perfectly, but maybe enough to get close if they're not looking specifically for it. General Wright studied the plan. And you intend to pilot this yourself, Commander? Yes, ma'am. I know the risks. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what those risks meant. The United Nations is meeting with the alien representatives at noon, General Wright said finally. We'll know then if diplomacy has any chance. In the meantime, prepare your mission, Commander. As the team dispersed to continue their work, Alan called his wife Melissa. He couldn't tell her what was happening, but he needed to hear her voice. Is everything okay? She asked, immediately sensing something in his tone. Just busy with work, he lied. How's Kate? She's fine, drawing pictures of aliens. Everyone at school is talking about them. Alan's throat tightened. Tell her I love her, okay? And Melissa? I love you too. There was a pause. You're scaring me, Alan. Everything will be fine, he said, not believing it himself. I'll call, again when I can. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparations. The thunderclap device was rushed from Nevada to a small airfield outside the city. The Nighthawk was modified according to Susan's specifications. Alan spent hours in a simulator, practicing the approach path they had calculated. At 1400 hours, news came from the United Nations meeting. The aliens had rejected all diplomatic proposals. Their terms were simple. Earth would surrender control of its major mining operations and agricultural regions or face cleansing. They gave a deadline of midnight. It's up to us now, General Wright told the team. The President has authorized Operation Thunderclap. As sunset approached, Alan prepared for takeoff. He wore a special flight suit designed to mask his heat signature. The Nighthawk sat on the runway, its surface coated with Susan's special material that made it look slightly blurry, like a mirage. Susan checked the thunderclap device one last time before it was loaded into the aircraft. Remember, you need to be within 500 meters of their command ship when you deploy this. Any farther and it won't be effective. How will I know which one is the command ship? Alan asked. Frank showed him an image. It's the big one in the center of their formation. Slightly different shape, with those antenna-like structures on top. Alan nodded, memorizing the details. And the timing? You'll have a 10-second window during their communication cycle. We'll be monitoring from here, and we'll send the signal to your onboard computer. When you get the green light, deploy. Immediately. General Wright approached as Alan prepared to board the aircraft. The fate of the world shouldn't rest on one man's shoulders, Commander. But tonight it does. Good luck. Alan saluted. Thank you, ma'am. If I don't make it back, save it, she interrupted. Just focus on the mission. The takeoff was silent and smooth. The Nighthawk used electric engines that made almost no noise. As Alan climbed into the night sky, he could see the alien ships glowing faintly in orbit above him. There were so many of them. Control, this is Thunderclap. I'm approaching the stratosphere, he reported. Roger that, Thunderclap. Maintain current trajectory. Alien ships are not showing any reaction to your presence. Nancy's voice came through his headset. The higher he climbed, the more vulnerable he felt. The Nighthawk was designed for stealth, not combat. It had no weapons, no heavy shielding. Its only defense was not being seen. At 70,000 feet, Alan leveled off. He was now above most of Earth's atmosphere. The alien fleet was clearly visible, enormous ships hanging in the blackness of space. He engaged the final stage engines and began his approach to the fleet. Entering detection range now, he reported, his mouth dry. Any response from the targets? Negative. They don't see you yet, Frank replied. Maintain course. Minutes passed in tense silence. Alan's heart pounded as he got closer to the massive alien fleet. The command ship grew larger in his viewport. It was huge, at least a mile long, with strange glowing patterns across its hull. Suddenly, alarms blared in his cockpit. They've spotted something. Nancy's voice was tense. Small patrol craft changing course toward your position. Alan watched as a smaller alien ship broke formation and moved in his direction. It was still far away, but heading straight toward him. Time to communication cycle? He asked. 8 minutes, Frank replied. You need to evade and stay hidden until then. Alan took the Nighthawk into a steep dive, trying to use Earth's upper atmosphere to mask his signature. The alien patrol ship adjusted course, still coming toward him but less directly now. They're not sure what they're seeing, Susan said. The stealth coding is working but not perfectly. For the next 7 minutes, Alan played a deadly game of hide-and-seek with the alien patrol. He skimmed the upper atmosphere, using clouds and thermal layers to confuse their sensors. 1 minute to communication cycle, Frank announced. You need to get in position now. Alan turned the Nighthawk back toward the command ship. The patrol craft was still searching for him, but had moved to a different sector. 30 seconds. Push the engines to maximum, racing toward the massive alien vessel. 10 seconds, get ready. Alan's finger hovered over the deployment switch. The command ship filled his viewport now, its massive hull covered in strange symbols. Now! He hit the switch. The bottom of the Nighthawk opened, releasing the thunderclap device. Then he pulled up sharply, pushing the craft away from the alien ship as fast as possible. Behind him, there was no explosion, no dramatic flash. Just a pulse of blue-white energy that spread outward like a ripple in a pond. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the lights on the alien ships began to flicker. The blue-white pulse expanded outward from the thunderclap device. Alan watched through the Nighthawk's rear cameras as it washed over the command ship and spread to the surrounding vessels. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Ship after ship lost power, their lights blinking out like candles in a strong wind. Control, this is Thunderclap. The device has been deployed, Alan reported, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Visual confirmation of effect on multiple enemy vessels. There was no response. Only static filled his headset. Control, do you copy? Still nothing. Alan checked his instruments and felt a chill run through him. The thunderclap pulse had affected his systems too. His communications were down. Navigation was failing. The stealth systems were offline. The Nighthawk began to drift. Without power to its main engines, the small craft was at the mercy of Earth's gravity. Alan tried the backup systems, but they provided only minimal control. He was falling and falling fast. Through the viewport, he could see the alien fleet in disarray. The massive ships were drifting out of their perfect formation. Some were spinning slowly. The command ship listed to one side, clearly crippled. Alan allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The mission had worked. Earth had a fighting chance now, but his own situation was dire. The temperature in the cockpit was dropping rapidly as life support failed. His altitude was decreasing at an alarming rate. Without full control, the Nighthawk would burn up in the atmosphere. Alan worked frantically, trying to restart the main systems. Nothing responded. He switched to manual controls using the small thrusters to adjust his descent angle. It wasn't much, but it might be enough to survive re-entry. The craft began to glow red-hot as it hit the upper atmosphere. Alan was pushed back into his seat by the G-forces. Sweat poured down his face despite the cold. The cockpit shook violently. "Come on," he muttered, fighting the controls. Just a little more. The heat was intense now. Warning lights flashed across his console, then went dark as more systems failed. Alan could barely see through the fiery glow surrounding the Nighthawk. His only hope was to maintain the right angle to avoid burning up completely. The next few minutes were a nightmare of heat, pressure, and fear. Alan fought to stay conscious as the G-forces increased. The craft tumbled and spun, making his stomach lurch. Then, suddenly, the worst was over. He had made it through the upper atmosphere, but he was still falling fast. The ground was rushing up to meet him. Without engine power, he couldn't slow his descent enough for a safe landing. He had only one option left. Alan reached for the ejection handle. At this altitude, he might survive with the parachute. It was a slim chance, but better than certain death on impact. He took a deep breath and pulled the handle. Nothing happened. He tried again. The ejection system was dead, like everything else, on the craft. Alan closed his eyes briefly. So this was how it would end. At least he had completed the mission. At least Earth had a chance. He opened his eyes and focused on guiding the dying craft as best he could. If he was going down, he would go down fighting until the very end. He aimed for what looked like an open area, away from any signs of population. Ground filled his viewport. 3,000 feet, 2,000, 1,000. The impact never came. Instead, Alan felt a strange sensation, like being lifted by an invisible hand. The Nighthawk slowed its descent dramatically. Through the cracked viewport, he saw a bright light from above. "American aircraft, do not attempt to move. We are bringing you aboard," a voice said in his headset. The accent was strange, but the English was clear. Alan looked up in confusion. Above him was another ship, but not one of the Vraxian vessels. This was smaller with a different design. As he watched in disbelief, a beam of light surrounded the Nighthawk, lifting it upward. "Who are you?" Alan asked, not expecting an answer since his communications were down. To his surprise, the voice responded, "We are the Kalari. We have been watching the Vraxian invasion force. Your actions were unexpected." The Nighthawk was pulled into an opening in the bottom of the Kalari ship. As the hatch closed beneath him, Alan lost consciousness. He woke to a strange humming sound. He was lying on something soft in a room with curved walls. The lighting was soft and blue. His flight suit had been removed, replaced by a simple gray garment. Most surprisingly, he felt fine. No pain, no injuries from the violent re-entry. A door slid open, and a figure entered. It wasn't human, but it wasn't like the Vraxians either. This being was tall and slender with pale skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. Its face was almost human-like, with large eyes that were a deep purple color. "You are awake." "Good," the being said. Its mouth moved in sync with the words, unlike the Vraxian communication. "I am Nerith, medical officer of the Kalari observation vessel." Alan tried to sit up. "Where am I? What happened to Earth? Did the pulse work?" Nerith made a gesture that seemed calming. "Your world is safe for now. The Vraxian fleet has been disabled by your device. Quite impressive for your level of technology." "You've been watching us? Why didn't you help?" Alan asked, anger rising in his voice. "We are observers only." "Non-interference is our primary directive," Nerith explained. "Your species was not expected to resist successfully. The Vraxians have conquered 17 worlds before yours." Alan stood up, testing his stability. "So you just watch while planets get taken over?" "Until now, we had no reason to intervene. The Vraxians' tactics have always worked. They surround a planet, demonstrate their superior technology, and the native species surrenders. Your resistance was unprecedented." "Well, humans don't give up easily," Alan said. Nerith made a sound that might have been laughter. "We are beginning to understand that. Our captain wishes to speak with you. Are you able to walk?" Alan nodded, and Nerith led him through curved corridors that seemed to be made of some kind of polished metal. They passed other Kalari, all similar in appearance. Some nodded to Alan with what seemed like respect. They entered a large room with a view screen showing Earth and the disabled Vraxian fleet. A Kalari with markings on its clothing turned to face them. "Commander Alan Morris," the Kalari said. "I am Captain Elin. Your actions have changed the situation considerably. The Vraxian Dominion believed your world would be an easy conquest. You have proven otherwise." "What happens now?" Alan asked. "Now we break our observation protocols," Captain Elin said. "Your courage has earned your species an opportunity. We will return you to your planet with information about the Vraxians, their weaknesses, their technology, their true numbers. Why help us now? Because you have shown something rare in the galaxy, the will to fight against overwhelming odds. The Vraxians have grown too powerful, too unchallenged. Perhaps humans will be the counterbalance needed." Alan looked at the view of Earth on the screen. From here, it looked peaceful, beautiful. "They'll be back, won't they?" Captain Elin nodded. "Yes, the Vraxians do not forgive defeat. But next time your world will be better prepared. And perhaps not alone." For the first time since the alien ships had appeared, Alan felt real hope. Humanity had not only survived the first contact with hostile aliens, but had impressed another, more advanced species. Earth would have a chance to prepare, to learn, to become stronger. "When can I go home?" he asked. "Soon," Captain Elin said. "First, there is much you need to learn." For the next 3 days, Alan remained aboard the Kalari ship. He learned more about the galaxy than he ever imagined possible. Captain Elin showed him star maps with hundreds of inhabited worlds. Some were part of alliances and trade networks. Others, like Earth, had developed in isolation. The Vraxians control this entire sector, Captain Elan explained, pointing to a cluster of stars. They began as refugees from a dying system, but over time became conquerors. Why doesn't anyone stop them? Alan asked. The same reason we observed without interfering. Most advanced species follow non-interference principles with developing worlds. The Vraxians exploit this philosophy. Alan studied the star maps carefully. And where is Earth in all this? Captain Elan pointed to a small star at the edge of a spiral arm. Here, far from the major trade routes and political centers. Until recently, your world was considered too primitive to be of interest. But the Vraxians found us anyway. They are expanding aggressively. Your planet has resources they desire. During his time on the Kalari ship, Alan also learned about their technology. The Kalari were centuries ahead of humans, but they freely shared their knowledge. Alan was given data storage devices filled with information about energy systems, propulsion, and medicine. This could advance our science by decades, Alan said, holding one of the small crystal-like objects that contained more data than all of Earth's computers combined. It is necessary, Nareth told him. The Vraxians will return, possibly within your year. You must prepare. On the fourth day, Captain Elan summoned Alan to the bridge. We have received communication from your government. They are demanding your return and threatening action against any alien vessels. Alan wasn't surprised. From Earth's perspective, one alien threat had been neutralized only to be replaced by another unknown ship. We will return you today, Captain, Elan continued. But first there is something you should see. The view screen changed to show a different part of space. A massive fleet of ships was gathering. These were Vraxian vessels, hundreds of them, much larger than the ones that had surrounded Earth. Their main battle fleet, Captain Elan explained. What you faced was only an advance force. Alan felt cold fear in his stomach. When will they come? They are still gathering, perhaps 6 of your months, maybe less. And will the Kalari help us fight them? Captain Elan made a gesture that Alan had learned meant regret. Our people are few, and our ships not designed for war. We cannot fight for you, but we can offer knowledge and perhaps facilitate introductions. Introductions? There are other species who have suffered under Vraxian expansion. Some have technologies they might share. Others might be persuaded to provide more direct assistance. Alan nodded slowly. So I'll be an ambassador as well as a soldier. You will be what your world needs you to be, Captain Elan said. The fact that one human could change the course of events has not gone unnoticed in the wider galaxy. There is interest in your species now. 2 hours later, Alan was back in the repaired Nighthawk. The Kalari had fixed the damage from re-entry and restored all systems. They had also made improvements to its stealth technology and communications. We will place you near your base, Nareth explained, as she helped Alan with final preparations. Your leaders are expecting you. We have communicated with them briefly. What did you tell them? Only that you were alive and would be returned. The rest is for you to explain. As Alan prepared to leave, Captain Elan approached with a small device. This will allow you to contact us if needed. Keep it secure. Alan took the device and tucked it into his flight suit. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Alan Morris. Your courage has created an opportunity for change in this region of space. Use the knowledge we have given you wisely. The return to Earth was smooth and quick. The Kalari ship positioned itself high in the atmosphere, and the Nighthawk was released to fly the rest of the way. As Alan approached the airbase, he saw fighter jets scrambling to meet him. They escorted him to the runway where a crowd waited. General Wright was the first to greet him as he climbed out of the cockpit. Her face showed relief and confusion. Commander Morris, we thought you were dead. Then we get a message from another alien ship saying they're returning you. What the hell happened? Up there? Alan looked around at the military personnel, scientists and government officials who had gathered. It's a long story, General, and we don't have much time to prepare. The debriefing lasted for days. Alan told them everything about the Kalari, the wider galaxy, and the Vraxian threat. He presented the data storage devices and explained the technology they contained. Scientists were skeptical at first, but when they began to access the information, their doubt turned to excitement. "This is revolutionary," Dr. Susan Taylor said as she examined the energy systems data. "We could never have developed this on our own, not in 100 years." World leaders met in emergency session at the United Nations. The disabled Vraxian ships had been captured and were being studied. Combined with the Kalari information, Earth now had access to technology far beyond its current level. 6 months isn't much time, the president said during a private meeting with Alan and key military leaders. "Can we be ready?" "We have to be," Alan replied. "And we might not be alone when they come back." As the weeks passed, Alan split his time between working with scientists to implement the new technology and preparing for his role as Earth's first interstellar diplomat. The Kalari communication device activated occasionally, providing updates on potential allies and Vraxian movements. 1 month after his return, Alan was finally allowed to go home. His wife Melissa and daughter Kate were waiting for him. The government had told them only that he had been on a classified mission. Now he could tell them the truth. "Daddy!" Kate ran to him as he walked through the door. He lifted her into his arms, holding her tight. Melissa approached more cautiously, studying his face. "You look different." "I am different," he admitted. "I've seen things, learned things." That night, after Kate was asleep, Alan told Melissa everything about the mission, the Kalari, and what was coming. "They're making me an admiral," he said. "I'll be commanding our first space defense fleet." "Space fleet?" "We don't have a space fleet," Melissa said. Alan smiled. "We're building one, using what we learned from the Vraxians and the Kalari. It won't be large, but it will be advanced." Melissa was quiet for a long moment. "I was so angry when you disappeared. I thought you had abandoned us for some secret mission, but you were saving the world." "I was just doing my job," Alan said. "And I was thinking of you and Kate the whole time, fighting to give you a future. And now? Now we prepare. The whole world is changing, Melissa. Everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe is different now. We're not alone, and we're not helpless." As they talked late into the night, satellite images showed activity around the globe. New facilities being built. Captured alien technology being studied and replicated. The first human-made spacecraft incorporating advanced propulsion systems, taking shape in secret locations. Earth was preparing for war, but it was also preparing to take its first steps into a much larger community of worlds. And it was all because one human had found a weakness and had the courage to exploit it. 6 months passed quickly. The world changed more in those months than it had in decades. Countries that were once enemies now worked together against a common threat. The captured Vraxian ships provided valuable technology. The knowledge from the Kalari helped humans understand and adapt it. Admiral Alan Morris stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, Earth's first true space warship. It wasn't large compared to alien vessels, but it incorporated technology that would have seemed magical just a year ago. 7 more ships like it waited in orbit, crewed by the best pilots and engineers from around the world. "System check complete, Admiral," said Lieutenant Steve Rogers, his second in command. "All ships report ready status." Alan nodded. "And our guests?" "The Kalari delegation is aboard. The Toran and Novan representatives are on the Phoenix and Excalibur. This was perhaps the most remarkable achievement of the past months. Using the Kalari communication device, Alan had reached out to other species who had suffered from Vraxian aggression. 3 had sent representatives and technical advisors. Some had even provided weapons technology. Earth was no longer alone. "Early. Warning system is detecting something," called out Ensign Linda Carter from her station. "Multiple objects entering the solar system." Alan straightened his uniform. This was it. The moment they had been preparing for. "Put it on screen," he ordered. The main view screen showed the outer edge of the solar system. Dozens of large shapes were appearing, then hundreds. The Vraxian battle fleet had arrived. "Send the alert to Earth Command," Alan said calmly, "and notify our allies. Battle stations, everyone." Throughout the ship, warning lights flashed. Crew members moved quickly to their positions. The other Earth ships formed up around the Defender. They were vastly outnumbered, but they had advantages the Vraxians wouldn't expect. The Kalari representative, Nerith, entered the bridge. "The Vraxian fleet is larger than we anticipated, at least 500 ships." Alan nodded. "But they don't know we've been preparing, and they don't know about our allies." The plan was not to meet the Vraxians head-on. That would be suicide. Instead, they would use the Kalari stealth technology and the new weapons developed with help from the Taurans. Hit and run, disable keyships, disrupt their formation. "They're sending a transmission," Linda reported. "On screen," Alan ordered. The same bluish-gray face appeared, the one that had first threatened Earth 6 months ago. "People of Earth, your resistance has only delayed the inevitable. Surrender now, or be destroyed." Alan stepped forward. "This is Admiral Alan Morris of Earth Defense Force. We defeated you once. We'll do it again." The Vraxian seemed surprised to see a human commanding a space vessel. "Your primitive ships are no match for our battle fleet." "We're not the same primitive species you tried to conquer," Alan replied. "And we're not alone anymore." He signaled to cut the transmission. "They're moving into attack formation," Steve reported. "Main fleet will reach Earth orbit in approximately 40 minutes. Alan turned to his crew. "This is what we trained for. Remember, we don't need to destroy them all, just enough to make them reconsider." The Earth ships moved out, using the moon as cover. At the same time, ships from the Taurans and Novans approached from hiding places in the asteroid belt. The Kalari vessel remained cloaked, providing tactical data. The battle began with a surprise attack. The Earth ships, using their new stealth technology, struck at the leading edge of the Vraxian fleet. Targeted EMP weapons, more advanced versions of the original Thunderclap, disabled dozens of enemy vessels before they even knew they were under attack. The Vraxians responded with energy weapons that lit up space like artificial suns. 2 Earth ships took hits but remained operational thanks to the shield technology provided by the Taurans. "They're adjusting their shields," Nerith warned. "The EMP weapons won't be as effective now." Alan had expected this. "Move to Phase 2. Target their command ships." The battle spread across the space between the moon and Earth. The smaller, more agile Earth and allied ships darted between the massive Vraxian vessels, causing confusion and disruption. The Vraxians had expected to find a helpless planet, not an organized defense with advanced technology. On the Defender's bridge, Alan coordinated the attack. Information flowed in from all fronts. They were holding their own, but the sheer number of enemy ships was overwhelming. "We've lost the Phoenix," Steve reported grimly. "The Excalibur is heavily damaged." Alan felt the weight of those losses. Good people had died, but they had known the risks. "The Vraxian formation is breaking," Nerith observed. They did not expect this level of resistance. It was true. The massive alien fleet was no longer moving in its perfect grid pattern. Ships were breaking off, some retreating, others pressing the attack more aggressively. Then a new alarm sounded. "Multiple ships entering the system," Linda called out. "Not Vraxian design." The view screen showed new vessels arriving. These were sleek and silver, moving with incredible speed. "The Arctarians," Nerith said with surprise. They responded to our message. The Arctarians were a powerful species that had remained neutral in most galactic conflicts. The Kalari had sent them information about Earth's resistance, but had received no response. Until now. The new arrivals tore into the Vraxian fleet with weapons far beyond what Earth or even the Taurans possessed. The battle quickly turned. "The Vraxian command ship is hailing us," Linda reported. Alan nodded. On screen, the Vraxian commander appeared again, but now its confidence was gone. "We will withdraw from your system. This conflict is not worth the resources." If you leave now, you don't come back, Alan said firmly. Earth is under protection now. Not just our protection, but that of our allies. The Vraxian did not respond directly. The transmission ended, and the massive alien fleet began to retreat. Some ships were left behind, too damaged to move. Others, self-destructed rather than be captured. As the enemy fled, cheers erupted throughout the Defender. Earth had stood against one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, and had not fallen. In the days that followed, representatives from a dozen alien species arrived at Earth. The planet that had been isolated for all of human history was suddenly the center of attention. Earth's successful resistance against the Vraxians had changed its status in the galaxy. 1 month after the battle, Alan stood with Melissa and Kate on the observation deck of the new International Space Station. Below them, Earth looked peaceful and beautiful. Above, ships from various allied species moved in protective orbits. "What happens now?" Melissa asked, holding his hand. "Now we take our place out there," Alan said, looking at the stars. "We've earned it." "Will there be more fighting?" she asked. "Probably, but we're not alone anymore, and we've shown what humans can do when pushed to the edge." Kate pointed excitedly as a Kalari ship passed by the window, its hull shimmering in the sunlight. "Is that your friend's ship, Daddy?" "One of them," Alan smiled. "There's a whole universe of friends we haven't met yet." As they watched the stars together, Alan thought about how much had changed because of one desperate mission. One human who refused to give up had opened the door to the stars. Earth would never be the same, and neither would the galaxy.